The golden sun rose over the crystal city of Aerith, the capital of Zebulon Prime. The light bounced off the tall towers, creating rainbows across the sky. 4 Zakarian princesses stood on the balcony of the royal palace, watching as the human ship landed in the distance. Their scaled skin shifted colors, showing their worry. Lyra, the oldest princess, had blue scales that now turned purple with concern. She looked at her sisters, Cora, Talia, and Maya, who all showed different colors of emotion on their skin. "Our father has lost his mind," Lyra said. Her voice was soft but angry. "He wants us to marry humans. They are so different from us. They have no scales, no telepathy, and they live such short lives." Talia, whose scales were normally green, nodded. Her color changed to a deep red, showing her anger. "These humans come from a small planet called Earth. They only found space travel 200 years ago. They are babies compared to our 10,000 years of space rule." Maya, the youngest, with pink scales, looked curious. Her color stayed bright, showing her interest, "But I heard humans are very creative and brave. They fight wars with their hands and build cities in places where they should not survive. They are strange but interesting." Cora, who had purple scales that now turned blue with sadness, sighed. "I do not want to marry someone I do not know or love. But our father is king. We must obey his order." The 4 princesses watched as the human ship landed in the royal port. King Vorax, their father, had ordered them to marry humans to create an alliance and to mix their royal blood with human DNA. The king believed this would make their children stronger and help their race survive. The royal advisor Zex came to the balcony and bowed to the princesses. His scales were gray with age. "Your highnesses, the humans have arrived. Please come to the throne room to meet them." The princesses followed Zex through the crystal halls of the palace. Guards with silver armor stood at every door, their scaled skin hidden under metal but their eyes watching everything. The throne room was huge, with a ceiling that seemed to reach the sky. Gems and precious metals covered the walls. Windows let in the golden light, making the room shine. King Vorax sat on his throne. His scales were dark gold, showing his royal blood and power. He wore a crown of star metal and held a staff, made from a material not found on any known world. His eyes glowed with the telepathic power. All Zakarians had entered. He commanded, his voice echoed in the minds of everyone in the room. The doors opened and 4 human women walked in. They wore the blue uniforms of Earth diplomats. They had no scales. Their skin was soft in different shades of tan and brown. Their hair was in various colors and styles. Their eyes did not glow with telepathic power. The princesses stared in shock. These aliens looked so plain, so simple. But they walked with pride and did not seem afraid of the king or the alien world around them. "I am Susan Kelly, leader of the Earth diplomatic mission." Susan said. She had short brown hair and stood tall. "I bring greetings from Earth. We are honored by this alliance." The other humans introduced themselves: Olivia, with black hair and dark skin; Patricia, with red hair and light skin; and Grace, with blonde hair and blue eyes. They all bowed to the king, showing respect. King Vorax studied them. His scales shifted slightly, showing his surprise at their confidence. "Welcome to Zebulon Prime," he said. "As you know, our worlds have signed a treaty. The final part of this treaty requires royal marriages. My daughters will each choose one of you as a mate." The human women nodded. They had been told about this arrangement. Their governments had selected them for this mission. They were all single, all brave, and all willing to marry aliens for the good of Earth. The princesses looked at the humans with doubt. How could they marry these strange creatures? But they knew they had no choice. Their father was king and his word was law. "For the next week you will spend time with my daughters," King Vorax said. "Then they will choose which of you they wish to marry." The human women agreed. Susan looked at Lyra with interest. Olivia smiled at Talia. Patricia studied Cora, and Grace watched Maya. The princesses shifted color, showing their mixed feelings. That night the princesses met in Lyra's room to talk. "I cannot believe we must do this," Lyra said, her scales dark with anger. "We know nothing about humans." "How can we marry them?" Talia agreed. "They are so different from us. They cannot even speak with their minds." They use only words. How primitive. Maya looked excited. I want to learn about them. They crossed space to come here. They must be brave. Cora sighed. We have no choice. Our father has ordered it, so we must obey. But perhaps it will not be as bad as we fear. The next day, the princesses began spending time with the humans. Each princess would spend one day with each human woman. Then they would choose which one they wanted to marry. None of them knew that this strange arrangement would change their lives and the future of two species forever. Lyra met with Susan first. The princess wore her royal robes of silver and blue. Her scales shifted between dark blue and purple, showing her discomfort. She led Susan to the crystal gardens where giant flowers grew in colors not found on Earth. Susan looked at everything with wide eyes, amazed by the alien beauty around her. She wore her blue uniform but had added a small pin showing the Earth symbol. Her brown hair was tied back in a neat style. I know you do not want this marriage. Lyra Susan said. Her voice was calm and direct. Zakarians believe in telepathy, but humans believe in honest words. I do not want to force you into anything. But I am here to build a bridge between our worlds. Lyra was surprised by this direct talk. Her scales flickered to light blue, showing her curiosity. You speak our language well. How did you learn? Susan smiled. I studied for 3 years before coming here. I learned your history, your culture, your science, and your language. I wanted to understand you. Lyra had not expected this. She thought humans were simple creatures who only cared about fighting and basic needs. But Susan showed a deep respect for Zakarian ways. They walked through the gardens talking about art and science and history. Susan knew as much about Zakarian culture as many Zakarians did. By the end of the day, Lyra's scales had stayed light blue for hours, showing her growing interest in this human. Meanwhile, Cora spent the day with Patricia. They went to the athletic fields where Zakarians practiced physical skills. Cora expected to easily defeat the human in any contest. Her species was stronger, faster, and had better reflexes. Or so she believed. Patricia surprised her. The human woman could run faster than any Zakarian despite the higher gravity of Zebulon Prime. She could lift weights that made Cora struggle. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible for a creature from a low-gravity world. How can you do this? Cora asked. Her scales had turned white with shock. Or should be weak on our world. Patricia laughed as she completed another race around the track. Earth has many different environments. She explained. We have places with high gravity, low gravity, thin air, thick air, hot, cold, wet, dry. We learn to adapt to all conditions. It makes us stronger. Cora had never thought of this. Her species had evolved on one world with one set of conditions. They had never needed to adapt, but humans had faced countless challenges on their homeworld. This had made them incredibly adaptable. By the end of the day, Cora's scales had turned a bright purple, showing her admiration for the human woman. Talia spent her day with Olivia in the royal library. The princess expected to show the human the superior knowledge of Zakarians. She brought Olivia to the mathematics section where complex equations filled the screens. I doubt you will understand any of this, Talia said. Her scales dark green with pride. Our mathematics is far beyond Earth. Science. Olivia studied the equations for a moment. Then she pointed to one of the screens. There is an error here, she said quietly. This solution is incorrect. The answer should be different. Talia stared at the screen, then at Olivia. Her scales turned yellow with surprise. You are right. But how did you know? Olivia smiled softly. I was a mathematician on Earth before joining the diplomatic corps. Numbers work the same across the universe. Throughout the day, Olivia solved equations in her head that Zakarians needed computers, for she explained mathematical concepts that even Talia found fascinating. By the end of the day, Talia's scales had turned a bright yellow, showing her intellectual respect for the human. Maya spent her day with Grace in the art center, the youngest. Princess loved creative things and wanted to show the human the advanced art of her people. Zakarians created art with technology, using mind interfaces to project their thoughts into beautiful displays. "I will show you how we make art," Maya said, her pink scales glowing with excitement. She put on a headband that connected to her mind and created a beautiful scene of floating lights and shapes. Grace watched with appreciation. "That is beautiful," she said. "But may I show you how humans create art?" Maya nodded, curious about primitive human art. Grace took out a small bag and removed simple tools, paper and colored sticks Maya had never seen before. "These are pencils and paints." Grace explained old tools from Earth history. "We still use them, because they connect us to our art in a physical way." Grace began to draw using just her hands, and these simple tools Maya watched amazed as a beautiful image appeared on the paper. It showed the Zakarian palace with details that even mind interface art struggled to capture. By the end of the day, Maya had tried drawing with her own hands. Her art was messy and simple compared to Grace's, but she felt a connection to it that her technology had never given her. Her scales stayed bright pink, showing her joy in this discovery. That night, the princesses met again to discuss their days. "The humans are not what I expected," Lyra admitted. Her scales, now a calm blue. "Susan knows so much about our culture. She respects our ways. Patricia is so strong." Cora said, her scales purple with excitement. "She can do things physically that I cannot do. She adapts to our world so easily. Olivia understands mathematics better than our teachers." Talia said, her scales yellow with intellectual interest. "She solves problems in new ways." Grace creates beautiful art with just her hands, Maya added, her pink scales glowing. "They are different from us, but they have skills we do not have." The princesses were confused. They had expected to hate these humans, but they found themselves respecting them instead. Each princess was beginning to see value in these strange aliens. The next day, they would switch partners. Each princess would spend time with a different human. They did not know that their views would continue to change as they learned more about Earth women and their unique abilities. The second day of meetings began. Lyra met with Patricia in the royal gardens. Her scales now showed more curiosity than anger. She had been impressed by Susan and wondered if Patricia would be similar. Patricia wore training clothes instead of her uniform. Her red hair was tied back, showing her face clearly. She smiled at Lyra. "I heard you like art and history. I prefer action. Would you like to explore the mountain region outside the city?" Lyra was surprised. No human had ever been to the mountain region. It was dangerous with strange creatures and difficult terrain. Her scales flickered with concern. "It is not safe for humans. The air is thinner and the gravity stronger." Patricia grinned. "That sounds perfect. Let me show you what humans can do." They took a royal flyer to the mountains. The vehicle floated above the purple grass and strange trees with blue leaves. When they reached the mountain base, Patricia looked up at the tall peaks with excitement. "I want to climb that one," she said, pointing to a sharp peak that even Zakarians rarely visited. Lyra stared at her. "You cannot climb that. The air is too thin for your lungs. The gravity will crush you." Patricia just smiled. We will see, to Lyra's amazement. Patricia began climbing without any special equipment. She moved over rocks and across narrow ledges with incredible skill. Her body seemed to adjust to the thinner air. Her muscles worked against the stronger gravity. Lyra followed, using her natural Zakarian abilities. But even she struggled to keep up. When they reached a high ledge, Patricia sat down, looking at the view below. The crystal city shone in the distance. The 3 moons hung in the sky. "How can you do this?" Lyra asked, her scales now bright blue with amazement. "Your world has lower gravity and thicker air." Patricia looked at the view while she answered. "Humans evolved on a world that changed many times. We lived in deserts, mountains, jungles, and ice fields. We learned to adapt or die. When we face a new challenge, our bodies change to meet it. It is in our DNA." Lyra realized that this was why her father wanted Zakarian royal blood to mix with human DNA. Humans had something her people lacked: the ability to adapt quickly to new conditions. Her respect for Patricia grew. Her scales showed new colors of admiration. Meanwhile, Cora met with Olivia in the science labs. Cora expected another physical competition, but Olivia suggested they work on a genetic research project instead. Zakarians are having genetic problems. Correct, Olivia asked as they looked at DNA samples under advanced microscopes. Your species has been stable for too long. Your DNA lacks diversity. Cora was shocked. How did you know this? It was a royal secret. Their species had become so similar over thousands of years that genetic problems were appearing. Children were being born with defects. The royal family kept this quiet. Olivia smiled softly. Human scientists studied your public health records. We noticed patterns. Your king is wise to seek human DNA. We went through similar problems in our early space age. Throughout the day, Olivia showed Cora how human DNA could help strengthen Zakarian genetics. She had knowledge that even royal scientists lacked. By the end of the day, Cora's scales showed deep respect for the human scientist. Talia spent her day with Grace. They visited the Royal Music Hall. Talia expected to show the human the superior sound technology of Zakarians. They created music with mind interfaces, producing perfect harmonies that no physical instrument could match. Grace listened to the computer-generated music with appreciation. That is mathematically perfect, she said, but it lacks something. Would you like to hear human music? Talia agreed, curious about primitive sound. Grace took out a small device and played recordings of Earth music. The sounds were imperfect compared to Zakarian music. Notes were slightly off-key. Rhythms varied, but there was an emotional quality that Zakarian music lacked. This is what we call soul, Grace explained. The small imperfections make it feel alive. Talia was fascinated. Her scales turned a new shade of yellow she had never shown before. She asked Grace many questions about human music and art and how emotions connected to creativity. It was a concept Zakarians had lost in their pursuit of technological perfection. Maya spent her day with Susan. They visited the Royal History Museum. Maya expected to teach the human about their ancient past. But Susan knew more about Zakarian history than Maya did. The human pointed to artifacts and explained their significance, dates, and cultural meaning. How do you know all this? Maya asked, her pink scales showing surprise. Susan smiled. I believe that to understand a species, you must study their past. The history of Zebulon Prime is fascinating. You achieved space travel 8,000 years before humans did, but then your development slowed. Why do you think that happened? Maya had never considered this question. She had accepted that Zakarians were superior because of their long history, but Susan made her see that her species had stopped growing while humans had advanced quickly in a short time. By the end of the day, Maya's scales showed new patterns of deep thought. She was questioning ideas she had always accepted as truth. That night, the princesses met again to discuss their experiences. Patricia climbed the eastern peak without any equipment. Lyra said, her scales bright with excitement, no Zakarian has done that without technology in 500 years, humans are physically adaptable in ways we are not. Olivia knows about our genetic problems, Cora added, her scales shifting to show concern. She says all humans know. They studied our public health records and figured it out. But she also knows how to help us. Grace understands emotions in art and music. Talia said, her scales a new shade of yellow. They create beauty through imperfection. It is a concept we have lost. Susan knows our history better than we do. Maya finished her pink scales patterned with thought. She made me question why our progress slowed while humans advanced so quickly. The princesses were now deeply confused. Their views of humans had completely changed. They had expected primitive, simple creatures. But these Earth women showed intelligence, strength, adaptability, and creativity that impressed even royal Zakarians. Tomorrow is our last day of meetings, before we must choose. Lyra reminded them, her scales now calm and thoughtful. Let us keep open minds. Perhaps there is wisdom in Father's plan after all. The others agreed. Their scales now showed colors of interest rather than disgust or anger. The idea of marrying these humans no longer seemed like a punishment. It might even Be interesting, the third day would bring new discoveries as the princesses continued to learn about these fascinating aliens from Earth. Each princess was beginning to form preferences about which human she might choose, but they did not yet realize how this choice would change the future of both species forever. The third day brought new pairings. Lyra met with Olivia in the royal laboratory. Her scales now showed calm blue curiosity. She had been impressed by both Susan and Patricia. She wondered what the quiet mathematician would show her. Olivia wore simple clothes but carried a small device Lyra did not recognize. "I would like to show you something about human problem solving," she said. Her voice was soft but confident. Throughout the day, Olivia demonstrated how humans approached scientific problems differently than Zakarians, where Zakarians relied on established methods and technology. Humans used creative thinking and new approaches. When faced with a complex physics problem, Olivia did not use the standard formula. Instead, she drew a simple picture and solved it, using a method Lyra had never seen. "We call this thinking outside the box," Olivia explained. "Sometimes the best solution is not the obvious one." Lyra was fascinated. Her people had become so focused on their traditional ways that they rarely tried new methods. By the end of the day, her scales showed a deep blue of intellectual respect. Meanwhile, Cora met with Grace in the crystal forest outside the city. Cora expected another physical or scientific demonstration, but Grace suggested they simply walk and talk. "I want to know about you," Grace said. "Not just your position or your species, but you as a person. What do you love? What do you fear? What makes you happy?" Cora was confused. No one had ever asked her such personal questions. Zakarians communicated telepathically, sharing surface thoughts but rarely discussed deep emotions. Her scales flickered with uncertainty. "I am a princess," she answered. "I do my duty to my people." Grace smiled gently. "That is your role. But who are you inside? When no one is watching, what brings you joy?" Throughout the day, Grace asked questions that made Cora think about herself in new ways. The human showed a deep interest in Cora's feelings and dreams. By the end of the day, Cora's scales showed a warm purple she had never displayed before. She felt truly seen as an individual, not just as a princess. Talia spent her day with Susan. They visited the royal archives where ancient knowledge was stored. Talia expected Susan to be impressed by the vast collection of data. But instead, Susan asked questions about how the information was used. "You have 10,000 years of knowledge here," Susan said. "But how do you apply it to help your people?" Talia was surprised by the question. Zakarians preserved knowledge for its own sake. They rarely used ancient wisdom to solve current problems. Susan showed her how humans took lessons from history and applied them to present challenges. By the end of the day, Talia's scales showed a thoughtful yellow-green. She was considering how her people could use their vast knowledge more effectively. Maya spent her day with Patricia. They visited the royal zoo where creatures from across the galaxy were kept in carefully controlled environments. Maya expected Patricia to be afraid of the dangerous aliens, but instead the human asked to see the most feared predator. The keepers brought them to the cage of a nexus beast, a 6-legged predator with poisoned spines and 3 rows of teeth. It could kill a Zakarian in seconds. Maya stayed far from the cage, her scales pale pink with fear. Patricia studied the creature with interest. "May I go closer?" she asked. The keepers looked at the princess. Maya nodded, curious about what Patricia would do. Patricia approached the cage slowly. The beast roared, showing its teeth. Most creatures would run, but Patricia stood her ground. She made soft sounds and gentle movements. The beast watched her, then to everyone's shock it, backed away and sat down. "How did you do that?" Maya asked. Her scales bright pink with amazement. Patricia smiled. "Humans evolved alongside predators on Earth. We learned to understand animal behavior. It is instinct for us." Throughout the day, Patricia showed a natural ability to connect with creatures that Zakarians feared. Maya was deeply impressed. By the end of the day, her scales glowed with admiration for the brave human. The fourth and final day of meetings began. Each princess had one human left to meet. Lyra spent the day with Grace in the royal garden. They sat beside a crystal pool where strange fish swam in patterns. Grace asked Lyra about her hopes for the future. "If you marry one of us, what would you want from the relationship?" Grace asked. Her voice gentle. Lyra had not considered this. She had thought only of duty, not of personal wishes. Her scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. "I would want respect," she said finally, "and understanding. Even though we are different." Grace nodded. "Those are the foundations of any good relationship," she said, "human or Zakarian. Some things are universal." Throughout the day they discussed relationships, communication, and understanding. By the end, Lyra's scales showed new patterns of thoughtfulness. She was considering marriage not just as a duty but as a potential partnership. Cora met with Susan in the Royal Library. Susan showed her historical records of how humans had overcome challenges similar to what Zakarians now faced. "Your species has reached a plateau." Susan explained it happens to civilizations that become too comfortable, too certain of their superiority. Humans have fallen and risen many times. It gives us resilience. Cora realized that human history with all its struggles had created strength. Her scales showed new colors of understanding. Talia spent the day with Patricia in the athletic fields. She expected physical demonstrations, but Patricia surprised her by suggesting they play a game. Games teach strategy, teamwork, and adaptation. Patricia explained, better than any lecture. They played human and Zakarian games, learning how each species approached challenges differently. By the end, Talia's scales showed bright yellow enjoyment. She had never experienced play as a form of learning. Maya met with Olivia in the Science Center. Olivia showed her mathematical models of how human and Zakarian DNA might combine. "Your children would have the best of both worlds," Olivia explained. "They would have Zakarian telepathy and human adaptability. They could change the future of both our species." Maya was fascinated. Her scales showed deep pink interest in these possibilities. That night the princesses met for the final time before making their choices. Their scales showed complex patterns of emotion and "Thought I have decided," Lyra said. Her scales a calm, deep blue. "I will choose Susan. She understands our culture, respects our ways, but brings new perspectives. We could build something meaningful together. I will choose Patricia," Cora said, her scales warm purple. "She is strong and brave but also kind. She faces challenges with courage and joy." Talia nodded. "I will choose Olivia," she decided. Her scales yellow with certainty. Her mind works differently than ours. She sees patterns and solutions. We miss together, we could advance science in new ways. Maya smiled. "I will choose Grace," she said. Her scales bright pink. She understands creativity and emotion in ways we have forgotten. She helps me see beauty in imperfection. The princesses were surprised by how certain they felt. They had begun this process expecting to hate the humans. Now each had found qualities they admired in their chosen mates. They went to sleep that night with their scales showing colors of anticipation rather than dread. The next morning, King Vorax summoned everyone to the throne room. The princesses stood before him, their scales now calm and decided. The human women stood opposite them, waiting for the choices to be announced. The king studied his daughters. He could see by their scale colors that something had changed. The anger and resistance he had expected was gone. In its place was thoughtful acceptance, even interest. "Daughters of Zebulon," he said, his voice echoing in their minds. "The time has come to choose. Your mates choose wisely, for this union will shape the future of our worlds." The princesses stepped forward one by one, announcing their choices. Each human accepted with dignity and respect. A formal ceremony would follow, but the selections were now official. King Vorax watched with satisfaction. His scales glowed with royal gold. His plan had worked better than he expected. His daughters had not just accepted the humans, they had found value in them. The alliance would be stronger than anyone had predicted. The human women looked at their future wives with interest and respect. They too had found qualities to admire in the alien princesses. A new chapter was beginning for both species. one that would change the galaxy forever. 6 months passed. The royal weddings took place with great ceremony. Representatives from 50 worlds attended. The Crystal Palace was decorated with flowers from both Earth and Zebulon Prime. The 3 moons aligned in the sky, a rare event that the Zakarians saw as a good omen. Each princess wore traditional royal robes in her personal color: Lyra in blue, Cora in purple, Talia in green, and Maya in pink. Their scales shifted with patterns of excitement and nervousness. They waited in the royal chamber for the ceremony to begin. The human women had special outfits created for them. Earth and Zakarian designers had worked together to make dresses that honored both cultures. They contained materials that shifted colors similar to Zakarian scales, but in human styles. King Vorax entered the chamber to speak with his daughters before the ceremony. His golden scales glowed with satisfaction. "You have made me proud," he said, his telepathic voice touching their minds. "6 months ago you resisted this plan. Now I see you anticipate these unions with interest. What changed your minds?" Lyra answered, her scales calm and royal. "Susan respects our ways while bringing new ideas. She has helped me see that preserving tradition does not mean rejecting growth." Cora nodded. "Patricia shows strength without dominance. She faces challenges with joy. Her courage inspires our people." Talia added, "Olivia brings new approaches to science. She has already helped our researchers solve problems that troubled us for centuries." Maya smiled. "Grace teaches us to find beauty in imperfection. She helps us remember the emotional core of art that we had forgotten." The king listened with interest. He had expected his daughters to accept their duty. He had not expected them to find value and even happiness in these arrangements. His plan had succeeded beyond his hopes. The ceremony united the 4 couples in royal marriage. Vows were exchanged, gifts were given, promises were made. The people of Zebulon Prime watched. With curiosity, they had been skeptical about humans joining the royal family. But they saw how their princesses' scales showed colors of genuine affection. The humans, too, showed respect and care for their Zakarian wives. After the ceremony, a great feast took place in the palace courtyard. Food from both worlds was served, music from Earth and Zebulon Prime played. King Vorax made an announcement that surprised everyone. "Today we unite our royal family with Earth," he said, his voice projected for all to hear. But this is only the beginning. 4 royal scientists will now reveal what we have learned. The chief royal scientist stepped forward, her scales gray with age but her eyes bright with excitement. "Our species has faced a genetic challenge. For centuries," she explained. "Our DNA has become too similar. We lack the diversity needed for healthy offspring. The human genome offers what we need: adaptability, creativity, resilience. By combining our royal bloodline with human DNA, we will strengthen future generations." The crowd murmured with surprise. This problem had been kept secret from most Zakarians, but there is more. The scientist continued. "We have discovered that human brainwaves can be trained to access limited telepathy. With practice, these human mates will develop abilities similar to our own. Though not as strong, they will be able to communicate mind to mind with their wives." The human women looked shocked. They had not known this was possible. The scientist smiled. "And Zakarians, who practice human methods of emotional expression through art, music, and physical activities, show increased neural plasticity. Our brains become more adaptable, more creative, more resilient. We have much to learn from each other." King Vorax raised his staff. "This alliance is not just political," he declared. "It is biological, cultural, and spiritual. Together our species will grow in ways neither could alone." The celebration continued for 10 days, as was Zakarian tradition. Each day highlighted different aspects of both cultures. The people began to accept and even welcome the humans. The princesses and their wives grew closer, learning each other's ways. 1 year later, the royal palace prepared for another ceremony. King Vorax summoned representatives from 100 worlds to Zebulon Prime. The great hall was filled with diplomats, officials, and leaders. The king stood before them, his golden scales glowing with pride. Today we celebrate 1 year of alliance between Zebulon Prime and Earth, he announced, but we gather for a greater purpose to share what we have learned. The 4 princesses and their human wives stepped forward. Each couple had changed over the year. The humans now wore special clothing that shifted colors, showing their emotions, though not as vividly as Zakarian scales. They moved with the formal grace of royal training. The princesses, too, had changed. They spoke aloud more often, using words as humans did. They showed emotions more openly. Their scales displayed new patterns and colors unknown in previous generations. Lyra and Susan stepped forward first. They had become experts in cultural exchange. Susan now served as ambassador between worlds. She had mastered limited telepathy, able to send simple thoughts. To her wife, Lyra had learned human diplomatic skills, creating new agreements that benefited both species. Cora and Patricia came next. They had formed an exploration team traveling to harsh worlds where neither species could go alone. Patricia's human adaptability combined with Cora's Zakarian technology allowed them to visit places previously unreachable. They discovered new resources, new life forms, new possibilities. Talia and Olivia presented their scientific breakthroughs. Together they had created a new field combining Zakarian traditional knowledge with human innovative thinking. Their research had already solved 3 major problems that had troubled Zakarian scientists for centuries. Maya and Grace revealed their artistic collaboration. They had founded a new school teaching Zakarian technology with human creativity. The art they created together showed beauty. Neither species could achieve alone. Their work was changing how both cultures expressed emotion. King Vorax looked at the gathered representatives 1 year ago. Many doubted this alliance, he said. Many feared difference. Many believed one species must dominate another. We have proven them wrong. Our strength comes not from sameness, but from complementary differences. Not from dominance, but from partnership. The king revealed the final surprise. Genetic testing confirmed that all 4 couples were expecting children. The first human Zakarian hybrids would be born within months. These children would have Zakarian telepathy and human adaptability. They would bridge 2 worlds in their very DNA. A new era has begun, King Vorax declared. For 10,000 years, Zakarians ruled through power and technology. Humans survived through adaptability and determination. Together we create something greater than either alone. The news spread across the galaxy. Many worlds that had resisted alliance with either species now sought connection. They saw the benefits of combining different strengths, different perspectives, different abilities. That night the princesses and their wives gathered in the royal garden. The 3 moons shone above them. Their scales and color-shifting clothes glowed in the soft light. They had started as strangers forced together by royal decree. Now they were partners building a future neither species could have imagined alone. Lyra looked at the stars, her scales showing deep blue contentment. I never expected to find understanding with a human, she said to Susan. But you see me as I am. You respect our differences and value our similarities. Susan took her hand. The universe is vast, she replied, filled with countless species, countless ways of being. The greatest wisdom is recognizing that no single approach is perfect together. We are stronger than apart. The other couples nodded in agreement. They had discovered a truth that would change their worlds forever. True strength comes not from believing your way is best, but from finding value in difference. Not from standing alone, but from building bridges across the stars. As the 3 moons aligned once more in the violet sky, the royal couples made plans for the future. Their children would inherit 2 worlds, 2 histories, 2 ways of being. They would become something new, something that might someday unite not just 2 species, but many. The alliance that began with a royal decree had become something far greater. A new path forward for life across the stars, a future where difference was not feared, but celebrated, where the unique gifts of each species created a whole greater than its parts. And it had all begun because 4 princesses had been willing to look beyond their prejudice, to see value in those different from themselves, to find strength in diversity, rather than sameness. Their story would be told across the galaxy for generations. a reminder that the greatest adventures begin when we open ourselves to those who seem most different from us. For in that difference lies the seeds of growth, change, and possibility.